Hello and welcome to Marineford TCG. We're back on the Japanese commentary. We're here with the AICHI CS, and we're just about to enter the top 16. This is the first tournament we've had in a while, and this is the final tournament for Japan in the OP11 format. They're about to get set 12 in 1 week. So let's see what the culmination of OP11 looks like. This will be a fairly interesting representation of what our meta might start at over in the West. Although we are getting those starter decks that might spice things up a bit. This meta has certainly developed quite a bit since it started over in Japan. At the start, we saw blue-purple Luffy, very, very dominant, absolutely tier 0. But as this meta has progressed, we've seen people choosing more to counter blue-purple Luffy than play it themselves. And then we've seen decks that counter those counters. And here we have blue-yellow Nami. This was a deck that was incredibly hyped when it was first revealed, and then in Japan, it kind of didn't do very well because that blue-purple Luffy matchup, at least from my experience, feels pretty bad. However, in some of the more aggro decks, that leader effect letting you go to 7,000 power for the whole turn for just one card is pretty insane. And we are going to see it match up into one of said aggro decks, because the opponent is playing an OP11 classic, Red Zoro. Red Zoro being one of those aggro decks that really counters the blue-purple Luffy well, because they just can't deal with the level of aggression that decks like Zoro and Betty put out. And as a result, we've seen lots of these aggro decks like Red Zoro, Red Yellow Betty, and Green-Purple Luffy doing incredibly well this format in those blue-purple Luffy dominated tournaments. I'm really interested to see how he can do into what, at least to me, would appear to be one of his worst matchups, the blue-yellow Nami. Them being at 7 is really going to hinder Zoro's aggression, because a lot of his units like to hit for 6. Once you put a Don on your leader, that chopper, for example, the 3-5 chopper, hits for 6. So he's going to have to put a Don on the chopper to even apply any pressure at all, which is pretty crazy. Nami also having an incredible amount of cards in hand because of her leader effect, causing her to draw a card when someone takes a life, is going to be pretty interesting to see how long this game goes on. I could see this being a bit more of a marathon than a sprint, but we'll see. The players are getting set up here. Be interesting to see who goes first in this matchup. Zoro typically quite likes going second, because you can play out that chopper and hold up a Don for the event. I'm not that familiar with whether Nami likes to go first or second, in all honesty. I know they do sometimes play the Hiyori to try and stack a Kikunojo into life straight away, which is pretty cool. But into Zoro, with those 5 lives, that play's not going to be online at the start of the game like it would be in something like a blue-purple Luffy. We'll see. Looks like both players choosing to mulligan. So what do you think? What are you going to be doing in this meta? Are you going to be choosing to play blue-purple Luffy or try and counter it? Or even try and counter the counters? I'm really excited to see how those starter decks spice up our format as well. That Buggy one, those reveals yesterday, they've got me kind of hyped, man. I enjoyed Buggy back when it came out, but the deck always just felt kind of bad. However, with those with that additional consistency in the Crockhawk, could be pretty hot. And we do see the Zoro player's hand. It does look like he has one of those events. Does also have a Kidden Killer. That could be a pretty nasty card. Hitting 8 for base with your leader effect will be pretty good into the defensive Nami. And in the Nami's hand, we see a Kikunojo. We see some cards from the ST22 Whitebeard deck, and in black and white, they all look the same. Well, we've got the Odin. That's the one that you can pick up one of your dudes and then he can restand to attack again. That's really nice into the blue-purple Luffy. And we also see the Vista. He's just a 1-1 chump blocker. Copy of Hiyori. Nojiko, going to be pretty good, I would think, into Zoro's aggression. Bouncing one of those 5 costs back to their hand for just 2 Don. And there's the Zoro's hand. Nothing too crazy. Hoping either the Kureha or the event will find that summoner chopper, I imagine. However, even just having the Alabaster Chopper to play out the Hiking Bear on one of those first couple of turns is going to be some pretty good pressure. We'll see who's going to get us started here. You do have the interesting scenario with the event, where if the Zoro player chooses to leave a Don open, you might just not choose to swing so that they don't get to use the event and apply extra aggression. We'll see how this one plays out. I believe the Nami player is going first. You've got this this card over here at the top. Believe they put that there to signify who's going first. Zoro player just going to take a look at the Nami's leader effect. You don't see many Namis in this format. So I'm pretty hyped that she's got all the way to top 16. It's pretty cool. One of my homies is planning on playing Nami, so be interesting to see what this list is like, although sadly we're not getting that Whitebeard starter deck for a long time in the West. And we are going to kick it off, and it is going to be that Nami player starting off, and he's just going to play out the Vista. Zoro doesn't play a lot of removal. He has the reduction with something like the blocker chopper, but doesn't really play hard removal, so you can safely drop those blockers. Mole gunning one of those would feel a little bit wasteful. And we do see the Alabasta, and we do see the Dr. Kureha come down. Going to grab one of those blocker choppers. That having the Dominant X2 minus 3k, as well as just being a blocker, is pretty good if the Nami player later on tries to play out something like that Odin. Going to let the Zoro player deal with that more efficiently. We do see the Nami on 3. It'll be interesting to see if they attack. And they do, so they are going to let the Zoro use his event, which is an interesting decision. A lot of the time you see players just pass into Zoro, although maybe this Nami player wants to get the extra pressure into the Zoro's life, and he's sort of accepting, I'm going to 7 anyway. Having this extra body on the board is not that big a deal, but we'll see how it works out for him. And then the Zoro player is going to take that initial 6k swing, drawing a Makino. That Makino is going to be pretty decent for buffing up the Kureha, but again, you've got to remember, being at 6 with the leader effect, it's not good enough into Nami. And the Nami player does get to draw a card, of course, with their leader effect, because the Zoro took a life. And looks like they drew a red rock. I'm not sure that is going to be incredibly impactful. Probably just going to get pitched off the Nami's leader effect at some point. Looks like we're debating whether to play out the Nojiko to bounce the Summoner Chopper. Could be a pretty smart play. And we do. That's a really smart play. Letting him use the event and then having the Nojiko to bounce whatever he summoned from the event. That's why this player is in the top 16, right? So we are moving on to the Zoro player's turn. He could just play out that Summoner Chopper again and swing 6 with the lead. It's not too bad. Would require 1 card from the Nami just to use their leader effect and go to 7. We could also see him choose to spam the board a bit with the Alabasta Chopper. But I do think that Summoner Chopper is generally likely to be the move. Could also hold 1 Don up. Swinging 5 versus swinging 6, not really a big deal into the blue-yellow Nami. It's that 7k that is the threshold you need to hit. And we are going to see 5. And looks like we will see the leader effect ditching that Odin. Deciding that Odin going to be a little bit too expensive in this matchup. And we will see that Summoner Chopper come back down. We'll see what he summons. Looks like we've got the EBO2 Chopper. That's the one that gives a rested Don to one of your characters or leaders on play. Could see 2 Don go onto that tapped Chopper to make him 5k in the opponent's turn. But we don't. We just see 1 on the leader, hold 1 up for the other event that we've got in our hand. 2 events already on our 4 Don turn. That's pretty wild for the Zoro player. And now that he has that tapped character, he can sort of be even more sure that the Nami player is going to attack, so he can use that event, because you want to clear Zoro's characters, right? So the Nami player's hand, we do see a Kikunojo. That could be a decent play to get out. We also see that's a Gum Gum Red Hawk, I believe. And that's a 4-Don event that KOs something with an original cost of 5, or can be 3k counter for your leader. We are going to see the extra event come down and another Summoner Chopper hit the board. Pretty crazy aggression from this Zoro player. And there was 3 Don on the Nami. It looked like 2. I think he was hiding one of them. So we will see 8 into 5, and the Zoro player is going to take. And the Nami player is then going to draw a card. Interesting that we see the Nami player going very, very aggressive at the Zoro's life. Getting those extra resources of drawing the cards is going to be pretty good. And we do now see the Hiyori possibly putting that Kikunojo in life. Now that the Zoro is down to 3, the Kikunojo's trigger effect and on KO effect are both online. So that's going to be a pretty powerful character once that comes out of the life. We do also see a pudding that the Nami player just drew there. And the Zoro player has currently 8 cards in hand, which is quite a lot. So we may well see that pudding get some pretty insane value in this match. Zoro weighing up his Dons. We do have some interesting rush options. We've got the Rush Zoro. We've got that Kid and Killer. Not going to be live yet, but later on in the game, I'm sure that will come in clutch. Be interesting to see what the Zoro player chooses to do here. Because you have to give so many Dons to all your characters and leader to swing 7, it becomes quite tricky. Like that 3k chopper, the little EBO2 one, that needs a 3 Don and the leader effects to even swing for 7. Which is, that's a big ask, that's a big ask. We may just see 7 from each of these summoners, and then a larger swing from the leader, or maybe playing out something like a searcher. We'll see, we're going to do the 7 with the first summoner first, and we'll see what we get off that. Looks like we're eyeing up an Alabaster Chopper and not a ton else. Yeah, just going to be that Alabaster Chopper. Him being 4k, slightly bigger than the EBO2 Chopper, but still going to require 2 Dons and the leader effect to even swing for 7. Nami player going to take their first life, and it was that Kikunojo that we put there with our Hiyori effect. Having that on the board is going to enable us to clear Zoro's board, or even be aggressive even more. And the Zoro player is not really going to want to KO that, right? Because of the on-KO to heal. As Zoro, you need to be aggressive, and healing your opponent is quite the antithesis of that. We'll see. Not sure what's going on. I think he's dropped a card. Yeah, we did see a Kidden Killer hit the floor. Judge is able to resolve that quickly. Always nice to see. And then the Zoro player working out their plays. I imagine we'll see at least 7 with the other summoner. Looks like he's weighing up potentially swinging 6 with the Zoro, but yeah, going to go 7 with the summoner chopper. That seems good. Do another search, see what happens. What do we get? Looks like a hiking bear or an EBO. Oh, we've got a good choice here, actually. We've got the EBO1 chopper, the blocker. We've got the EBO2 chopper, and we've got the hiking bear, and is going to go with that blocker. Probably played over the EBO2 chopper, because that Kureha can be buffed up by the Makino for just 1 Don. So could actually be stronger than that EBO2 chopper sitting at just 3k base. Although he disagrees, we're going to see it over the Kureha. That's totally fair. And then we've got the swing of 7 that the Nami player is going to take once more. Going all the way down to 2 already. And does draw a Zeus. That Zeus, new card out of OP11. Lets you take one of your lives and then KO a 5. Really good 2k for the Nami deck. Of course, proccing your leader effect as well to draw a card. As well as removing a 5. And we'll see what we see here. We could just see something like a 7 from the Zoro's leader. Or even an 8. Looks like we're going to see 5 from the little EBO2 chopper, forcing the leader effect, and we will ditch the red rock. Seems good to me. That card's not too hot. And then we're not going to see the Zoro's leader swing, interestingly. We're going to play the Nami over that chopper. And then see what the Nami can grab us here. Maybe looking for something like a Jambe for later on, or even another chopper or a 2k here. Oh, does look to be eyeing up another event. But you wonder how much value he's getting out of these events now that the board is very, very full already. There's only so many summoner choppers in the deck, and we have put one to the bottom recently with the on attack of one of the other summoner choppers. So unlikely to be hitting that, and that is the most powerful character you can hit from the event. So we'll see. We'll see. And looks like the Zoro player is deciding whether or not he wants to swing 7 or leave one up for the event. The Nami leader is at 7k already, so this 6 from leader would do nothing. If he wants to swing 7, then can't use that event on the next turn. Debating in his mind which is the best line. Looks like he's eyeing up the 7. He can't make his mind up. I think the extra aggression seems pretty good with how full the board is at the minute. I mean, you could save the event for a later turn when your board is a little bit more barren. But we'll see. He's the expert. It's quite funny. Yeah, we are going to see the extra 7 into life. I think that's worth it. The Nami player doesn't have a ton of counter in his hand. Looks like we are going to pitch that Hiyori for a 2k. And we will start the turn of the Nami player. So that hand is not amazing. The Eustace Kid, not live yet. We do have the Pudding that could reset this Zoro player from 8 cards all the way down to 4. That could be pretty powerful. And then maybe we try and remove some of the board. And we will see the Pudding. -3 on a 4-Don Pudding. That's pretty crazy value, right? You gotta love that. That Pudding been a menace since it came out. One of the most insane cards in blue. And every blue deck's playing it. Forcing him to shuffle all the way down to 5. Getting rid of all those resources that he had. That Kidden Killer, the Zoro, and the event. Already 2 events down. Quite unlikely to draw into another one. Although, watch him hit one right here. There it is. It's 2 Rush Zoros, a Makino, and an event. Honestly, that hand's pretty good. The extra aggression in the Zoros. For just 4 Don, you can swing for 7 with the leader effect. Having the event for a bit of a backup. And still drawing that Makino to potentially pressure with the Nami on a turn. Nami player down to 3 Don. Might want to apply a little bit of pressure to life to get that extra draw from the Nami's leader effect. That would be interesting. But also this board is very threatening, so it's a tough choice. Looks like we are seeing 7. As for where, I don't know. And do remember we have this Vista blocker on the board as well. So the Nami player, whilst only at 2 life, does also have that little chump blocker. Zoro player definitely going to take that 7 at life, and the Nami player will draw. Draws into another pudding. And then we're going to see another 7. Is this also at life? Is he just out aggroing the Zoro? That's kind of cool. I can't lie, that's really cool if that is what he's doing there. Deciding, hey, we'll just race. I'm at 7k. You've got to invest a lot of resources to even attack me. And I'm going to get those resources back from your hand by attacking your life and drawing extra cards to then defend those swings on the next turn. Really interesting. I've not seen this matchup at all. So that's kind of hype. Zoro player debating whether or not to counter this 7. Got to assume this was into his life again, potentially. If you were going to attack the characters, I feel like attacking the characters first is the way to go. Because you're more likely to get that attack off. But we'll see. Going to give 2k, 1k, so definitely either into life or one of these choppers. We'll never know. I expect into life, though. This Nami player's been playing incredibly aggressively. Which, considering he's only got 1 character on the board in this Kikunojo, it's kind of impressive that Zoro is already down to 2 with so few resources. It's just the power of Charlotte Pudding. Crazy card. Now, the Zoro player, starting his next turn with 8 Don, immediately slamming that Don on his leader. Makes a lot of sense. We will see just 5 at life with the Alabaster Chopper, necessitating the use of the leader effect straight away. Nami does just such, ditching the Kikunojo to go to 7. And then we're going to see a 7 at leader with the summoner. See what comes out of the deck. Again, board space, fairly low. We do see another blocker chopper, though. That's certainly at least better than the Alabaster Chopper. And potentially better than that Nami as well. So we'll see what he goes for here. Going to take the blocker chopper and play over the Alabaster Chopper. Yeah, I think valuing the Nami, being able to be buffed by that Makino that's in his hand to attack for 7, slightly easier than that Alabaster Chopper. It's pretty cool. We are going to see one more 7. The Nami player did counter that 7 with a pudding. Zoro's hand a little bit lower now, so the pudding not going to get too much value. We do see another blocker chopper potentially coming out here. And that's a lot of blockers if so. We'll see if he decides to play that over the Nami. Looks like he will. Yeah, going to ditch that Nami, play out another blocker. I mean, these blockers are going to make it so hard for the Nami player to ever go for game. Because if you don't take out these blockers while they're tapped, they're just going to stand up and then they are blockers, right? We do see the Nami player take down to 1. Gets the Nami blocker. The Nami blocker is a really good card. Draws 3 and then puts 2 either back on the top or bottom of your deck. So if the Nami player decides they just want a little bit of defense and to get some more cards in their hand with counter, that could be pretty cool. Zoro with 5 Don remaining. Looks like we're running up at least a 7 with the leader, you'd have to assume. Not sure if this other blocker chopper will swing. We do also have things like Rush Zoro that could be pretty cool. We could be eyeing up a bigger swing with the Zoro leader. But I think swinging with that blocker chopper seems worthwhile. Getting cards out of Nami's hand is really what you want to do. Going wide and swinging lots of 7s is the way you beat them. But we'll see if this Nami player is able to make the comeback. They're already down to just 4 cards in hand and 1 life. They're really low on resources, and this Zoro's board is pretty crazy. Zoro man doing his math, taking his time. Looks like we are going to see another swing of 7 into the Nami, presumably. Don't think we'd ever be interested in taking out that Kikunojo. And we do indeed see that, and we will pitch the Zeus to counter out on that one, opting to keep the Nami blocker. as just a blocker and a good cycle for Nami player. 4 Don remaining for the Zoro. We could see a swing with a blocker. Might be debating whether or not he can actually die on the clapback. Nami player does have 2 characters that can meaningfully attack. Okay, Zoro player going to replace one of those blockers with the Nami Searcher. Not quite sure what he's looking for. All he gets is that Alabaster Chopper. I'm sure whatever he was looking for, that's not it. Maybe the Jambe, if he plays Diablo Jambe, could be something he was looking for. Or that 2k Sanji, that's effectively a Diablo Jambe, if he's playing that one. The one from the Starter Deck 21 Red Luffy deck. Gives one of your 6,000 power or greater characters unblockable. 3 Don remaining. We could swing for 8 with the Chopper. Would demand another 2k out of the Nami. And as we have the knowledge, we can see that he doesn't actually have that. So he'd probably have to block to avoid going down to 0 and losing to Jambe. But the Zoro player doesn't know that. Could easily have another 2k. And given that we just countered that last 7 with a 2k, it certainly gives that impression. There's a picture of Rush Zoro in case you didn't know that card. He could play that out for 3, but won't be able to attack with it because it's only at 6k power. And the Nami's obviously at 7. Unless he wanted to attack the Kikunojo and give the Nami player a heal, which would be interesting. Wouldn't be the worst play in the world, but you've got to think he won't do that, given how aggro he's been able to play this game with those events. He's thinking hard. This is a long turn for our friend here. He's got 3 Don. It's play out Zoro or swing, I think. And it looks like we are going to play out the Zoro. Or is he baiting me? But does choose to play out that Zoro in the end. Not be able to swing with it, but having that extra 3/5 body on the next turn is going to be pretty good. And then we're going to pass it over. Or we're thinking about swinging into Kikunojo. That's fair enough. I don't know if the Nami player would choose to defend it. They do seem to want that blocker. The fact they gave up the 2k instead of the blocker gives you that. And they won't mind the heal, right? The extra resource. But it does take away some of that aggression. Going to make it incredibly hard for the Nami player to interact with the board if you do try and clear that Kikunojo. Here's Markino. So we did replace all the 1 costs. So the Markino not really going to do anything other than be a 2k. We're debating whether swinging this Zoro. That's nearly another minute he's been sat here thinking about this Zoro. And we're getting down to 12 minutes on the clock. Over half the time gone. But we're coming to a decision hopefully soon here. It's been interesting to see how Zoro as a deck has risen back up so much in this meta as Blue Purple Luffy took over. Because you're so aggressive swinging 6s into them with all of your summoners, your leaders, and even just needing 1 Don for these 4k units to attack 6. It very much plays out similar to this. But even more easy for the Zoro to aggress the Blue Purple Luffy down. And we are going to see that Kikunojo taken out eventually. And we will see the heal from the Blue Yellow Nami player. I'm happy to let that go and get the heal. Going to see a draw. What do we see there? He's covering it up. I'm on the edge of my seat. Looks like it's another Nami blocker. So he does have 2 Nami blockers. Can't play them both out for 2 Don. For 9 Don, excuse me. We will see the pudding start with a 4 into 4 into the blocker chopper. Going to at least alleviate a little bit of the pressure. Getting rid of this blocker chopper for no Don investment seems pretty decent. Although potentially we are thinking about saving it with the Zoro player. He does have that Alabaster Chopper, which is not incredibly impactful in his hand. Although if the Nami player does decide to get aggressive, every bit of counter may matter. And that blocker, if he saves it, will at the very least become a blocker next turn to block a swing. And we are going to see that blocker chopper saved by ditching the 1k on the Alabaster Chopper. Looks like we're going to see 6 into the blocker chopper. And we are going to see that let go. And then we're going to see the Eustace Captain Kid come down, activate his on play, trash a life, taking the Zoro player down to 1, removing another resource, and Kid's end of turn effect, draw 1, trash 1. And the Nami's effect, of course. The Nami's effect did draw us into that 8-cost Luffy. And that 8-cost Luffy, when he attacks, can bounce a blocker, which is incredibly impactful when you're going for game. Stream has got a little bit blurry here. Let's pause and unpause. That's a little bit better, I think. And then we do see the Nami player passing over, trashing that Gum Gum Red Hawk, deciding that's not going to be very useful. I expect we will see the Nami player try and go for game next turn. So we may see the Zoro player forced to go for game this turn. Pretty crazy. That Eustace kid just trashing that life, taking away a life and a resource. And the fact that he gave him the 1k with the pudding, and then the blocker chopper was still forced to hit the trash because the Nami swung into it, was a very, very good turn for the Nami player. And we do have 10 Don for the Zoro. I imagine we'll see at least one on the leader. And the Nami player does have 4k counter currently, 2 lives, and a blocker. Don't forget this Vista. He's been chilling here all game. But he's probably going to block sooner than later. We do see 7 with the Summoner Chopper. Going to do that search. Looks like we have a Robson or a EBO2 Chopper. That EBO2 Chopper giving a rested Don would be reasonable. But the Zoro player doesn't have any rested Don, because this is the start of his turn. So, not going to get any value. Just going to take the Robson. Is a slightly larger character if we do survive another turn. Nami player taking that 7, going down to 1 life. We do see another 7 come out from the other Summoner Chopper. We're going to do the when attacking. Look at the top 5. See if there's anything slightly better. We do just see an Alabaster Chopper there. Unlikely that we'll see that come down. Yep, just going to skip over that one. And then Nami player is going to counter with the leader effect and the 1k of the Nami. Ditching that AICHI Luffy, interestingly, that can bounce a blocker. But we do have the Zeus, which for 2 Dong can just KO his blocker. And the Nami leader is now at 7. Zoro is going to swing in with the Zoro character for 7. But this is one of the last attacks, and we do see the ditch on the 1k Nami blocker. Zoro got 6 Don left, 1 rush unit in hand in that rush Zoro. Nami player still got that Vista blocker. That Vista blocker came down right at the start of the game, and it makes it really hard for that Zoro player to ever go for game, because he doesn't play the removal cards. He has Mulgun, but it costs 4, and he hasn't drawn it. So no way really to remove this Vista at the moment. We are going to see the Chopper maybe having 2 Don on him, swinging 7, and using that when attacking to give something -3. Could look to take out the Eustace kid to make it very hard for the Nami player to go for game this turn. Without that kid on the board, not really any way for them to. They do have the pudding and the Nami leader, but it will be quite risky. Although, who knows, we may all see that be the only option. Especially if this blocker does swing. If this blocker does swing and try and take out the kid, then there's no blocker there. So maybe the pudding can have hands. Interesting choices as we edge into what is definitely going to be one of the last turns of the game. I can't imagine this game goes on more than 1 or 2 more turns. Zoro holding up 5 Don. Not sure what he's planning on doing with that. Working out all his options. This is a tricky turn. Because if you take out the kid with the Chopper blocker, you then don't have any blockers. And whilst he does have that event in his hand, we've seen, I believe, 3 or 4 of those blocker choppers. So incredibly unlikely that we're going to be able to summon that with the event. Although it looks like we are going to be taking out that kid, or at least trying to. Thinking. Yeah, so we're going to, with the leader effect, there's the Chopper is at 8k power. Going to do his when attacking to minus down the kid to 6. Then we are going to see the block on the with the Vista. And then we're going to see the Zoro swing in 9. Nope. 6. I have to assume that attack was into the kid. It looked like it. But it could have been into life. Although if it was 8 into life, I do feel like he would have countered with the Nami. Sorry, with the Zeus. So, yeah. And then again, attacking into the kid. 6 on 6. Then we do see one more Zoro come down. 6 on 6 once more into the kid. But we do have another 2k in the Zeus. So the kid is able to survive. Nami player going to enter their refresh phase. 9 at lead with the kid. 15 at lead with the leader. And Zoro has lost this match. Incredible. I didn't think that the Nami player was going to get out of that point. Taking out that Kikunojo, whilst it did alleviate the pressure, really gave that Nami player just an extra turn because they have so much defense with that leader effect. It was very hard for the Zoro player to break through. I definitely reckon that game could have gone either way towards the end there. Both players played very well, could have made some different decisions, but congratulations to that blue-yellow Nami player for winning. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon with the top 8.